All right, guys, we did it. We can hang out the mission accomplished banner. We weren't satisfied with just getting Jackson Smith and Jigba to play up to his talent. No way. We dig deeper. We take on the toughest battles, and may we present to you, our audience, a fully operational Xavier Worthy. Take a bow, Matt. It's time. It took longer than we hoped, but here we are. But we know, hey, we've got bigger fish to fry this week. We've got Nelson up in second place in the NFFC RotoWire Online Championship Sprint. Nice job, Nelson. Team looking good, and someone else around here was in sixth place too. So all of you,
go boys,
Team Empire,
no doubt. All you guys have championships to win, so let's get into it. Let's get into the Empire, and I want to start out with Nelson's team. We're gonna put that up on the board here, and we'll just go through it here. So. Yeah. Hang on, let me get this on the board.
Yeah, while you do that, Dan, shout out to both of you guys coming into this final championship week with two teams in the top 10. Like you said, Nelson's second overall, chasing down only one team ahead of him. You were in sixth. Obviously, a couple points changed hands with the three games that we've already witnessed. Three stinkers. Last night's game, the Seattle-Chicago game, was by far the worst game I could ever remember watching. It was like watching paint dry. If you made it through that game in all four quarters, congratulations to you. And a bigger congratulations to you if you had nobody going in that game because you dodged a major bullet.
Yeah, that game was a car wreck in slow motion.
Absolutely. I watched zero of that game. So
you are the big winner, Matt.
Yeah, you were the winner. You were the big winner, Matt.
No, I got JSN on my one prime team that has a chance to get some cash, and I ended up a loser on that one.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, crash and burn for JSN. JSN was absolutely fantastic these last 2 months. You see him littered on a lot of teams that are high up in the overall standings, but he crashed and burned. And while we're talking about players that you see a lot of in the top 10 overall, whether it was in the online championship, which Nelson and Dan are fighting for here, or the prime time or the FFPC, you see one common name, and that's Keenan Allen. So let's start there. He underachieves in this first week, in this final championship week with 7.5 points, along with everyone else that bombed out. But Nelson, let's start right there. I know you lose CD Lamb on this team, your star wide receiver one, and that allows you to, you have to pivot to somebody on your bench. First question to you was, in reviewing your team, you had Keenan Allen in the last couple of weeks or one of the 2 weeks? Because he's been on fire.
One of the 2 weeks I had him in, but my intention was to not play him this week because there's two schools of thought. When you're looking at the overall leaderboard, is do you want to play a guy that is littered on teams in, around the top 20 and just keep pace with the field? Or do you want to pivot and not use that guy, even though he's been on a heater? And then if he puts up a dud like he did last night, you've got an advantage over a lot of teams around you. And
so that's, yes, perfect. So that leads me to my question, Nelson, is, you look at the guy who was in first overall, Brett Labar, with shout out to him. He's got teams in the top 10 in the prime time, and he's leading the online championship. You look over at his team, you see that he's got Keenan Allen in his lineup, as well as everyone else surrounding you in the overall standings. Did you think about, when you lost CD Lamb, did you think about still sticking with avoiding Keenan Allen and pivoting to Jamison Williams on your bench there? That's really the only guy you could bring into your starting lineup. And then on top of it, I know from what my mind frame would be was, hey, I get a guy on Monday night that if I can just stick there right in that top 3 or 5 overall, maybe I could get the big Jamison Williams, 20, 25 point game and finish this thing off.
It definitely crossed my mind. The one issue that I kept getting hung up on was that Malik Neighbors basically called himself a game day decision. So not only did I have a question mark with CD, before the news came out, I was already thinking about this because I was playing it out. You know, what if CD taps out, and then what if Neighbors just decides that they decide, you know what, we're gonna give this kid a chance to recoup, and maybe he comes out for week 18 and he sits out. Now I got a real dilemma on my hands because now I've missed out on Keenan. I got to play Jameson and I got to play Nick Westbrook-Akina. Would be my two options into the lineup, and I don't necessarily mind Jameson, but it's not the greatest of matchups. Just based on statistically, the 49ers have been pretty tough against wide receivers. So I wasn't like super excited to go Jameson, even though it was kind of like, oh, you like having the Monday night hammer, so to speak, what you were saying. It was more of like CD and Neighbors. And then once CD, they ruled him out, I actually thought this might actually be a good thing that they did this right before the Thursday night game, because now I can get Keenan Allen into my lineup rather than come Sunday, they say, oh, inactive CD, inactive Neighbors. And then I'm like, shit, I got no choice but to go Jameson and Westbrook-Akina.
Yeah. All right. So that's what I figured you were thinking with keeping Jameson on the bench, was because you had Neighbors in there. But Keenan Allen's been on fire, so that's another issue is, how do you not play Keenan Allen? I get it. You look at the other teams around you, especially the team that you're trying to track down. He also has James Cook in his lineup to cancel out your James Cook, which you're both playing. You both have George Kittle at the tight end position. If you both go Keenan Allen, now that's three common players that you have right there. So I know you probably wanted to get a little different there, but you were forced in with the CD Lamb injury to get Keenan Allen, who's been putting up 20 plus and looking like the real wide receiver one in Chicago lately. So I get it. Other than that, Nelson, good luck to you. You had Lamar. You have the quarterback that everybody has in the top 10. I think the top 7 teams right now all have Lamar Jackson in. Banked his 35 points. And you got the players that, are common, like, that you want right now. The Chase Browns, Devin A-Chain, Brian Thomas has been, the guy that you need. And James Cook has been on fire. So other than that, wish you luck here. I think you could get it done. I think the 3 running backs are going to be the guys that you need 20 plus points from each.
Those are going to be the key
week.
guys. For me, just looking through all the teams, there's a bunch of teams with Brian Thomas, obviously. Kittle, other than the Labar that was in first place, I didn't see many Kittle teams up there, so I think he could be potentially a difference maker, not catching Labar, but just when it comes to the other teams. And then the running backs, like you said, and then Malik Neighbors. No one has Neighbors. So if he plays, that's the iffy part, is whether what to do with him. I think I just got to play him if he plays.
I agree with that. I mean, Labar is in the driver's seat here, in my opinion. He's got a different looking team. I think that was what you wanted to see coming into this week is, even though you both had James Cook and George Kittle, you could have been different, obviously, with the Keenan Allen. But with that aside, you had different quarterbacks. You have, his top 2 wide receivers are Jamar Chase and Devontae Adams. Yours is Neighbors and Brian Thomas. So you guys have very different looking teams. So that's what you want going into championship week. If you're in second place overall and you're trying to track down someone, is you had enough guys that were different. He's obviously in the driver's seat with Burrow still to play and Jamar Chase, but we'll see what happens any given Sunday. This week has already started wacky, so maybe you need a little craziness come Sunday.
No doubt. All right, and here is my team.
So, Dan, I mean, I get it, but what was your thought process on benching Lamar? I guess is really the only question. I mean, I get it. Daniel's coming off 47, but just
Daniels has outscored Lamar over the past month, really, and he, basically ever since he got healthy, he's been scoring really, really well. And my thought process was there were a few things that went into it, really. First off, I really felt like this was going to be a big game for Derrick Henry, and it might not be a big game for Lamar as a result. Secondly, I know I'm looking at Nelson up above me. He was in second place. First place team also, first place has Chase, but I didn't want to be the same as Nelson because I thought it would make it a little bit too tough for me to catch him because I knew I was already playing Achane like him. And then as it turned out, we ended up playing Keenan Allen, though I didn't necessarily know that. I had to consider at least the possibility that he might be playing Keenan Allen too. So, and I really think that, Washington, Atlanta, that game could be a shootout. I mean, I just got a gut feel on that. So, combination of those things, in the top 20, there were more Lamar teams than there were Jaden Daniels teams. So I figured this was a place where I could get a little bit different. If the number one team has Burrow and Jamar Chase, so if those guys rock out, I mean, we're all playing for second. But if not, I want to have something different that can vault me up into the top.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask that because people seeing the screenshot. And I'm with you. I mean, Jaden Daniels has been pretty amazing as well. Like you said, as soon as he's gotten healthy these past few weeks, and. Who is the other guy? You did well benching Zay Flowers because it's been crazy these past 3 weeks. It's anybody but Zay Flowers is going to catch a touchdown on this team. I mean, Lamar had in 6 quarters, the Giant game, and then the following week, 8 touchdowns, and Zay Flowers had 0.
Yeah, and Zay hasn't had any ceiling, really, over the past couple months. So, he'll get you 13, 14 pretty much every week. This week he didn't even do that. But I figure if I'm benching Lamar, there's no way I'm going to be throwing Flowers in there. So one kind of goes with the other.
That's what I wanted to ask you there, Dan. Was it like a combination? Because your team's really interesting to me, and the way you played this. I don't disagree with you, actually. If I was in your position, looking at the teams that were surrounding in the top 10 overall, and the guys above me all having Lamar, I would have pivoted. I would have did the exact same thing you did. I was playing it out in my head. I definitely would have went Jaden Daniels myself, as crazy as it would have looked. But, for me, it's first place, or if you ain't first, you're last. Right. But when you made that decision, when you made that decision to sit Lamar for Daniels, did it go hand in hand, or did you think about maybe, listen, if Lamar goes off, it'll probably be with Zay Flowers, so let me get Zay in there and sit Lamar, or it was just a package deal, hope it's a huge Derrick Henry game, which it really kind of was. That game was very, very weird. Lamar still got his 35 points, but it was, halfway through the second quarter, it looked like a complete Lamar bust. But did you just decide, hey, listen, I'm going to completely fade this game and take my chances and sit both of them?
Yep, that's basically what I did. And also, the player that I put in instead of Flowers was Cortland Sutton. And what was running through my head on that one is, number one, Sutton has mostly outperformed Flowers over the past month or so. But also, Sutton is playing against the Bengals, who the number one team has, Burrow and Chase. So this is kind of my run it back on that stack. I'm trying to take the other side and hope, hey, if it's a shootout, maybe Cortland Sutton goes nuts and, at least kind of keeps pace with Jamar Chase or something like that. And then I'll just have to take my chances with Jaden Daniels being able to outscore Burrow. So I just wanted, something in that same game where, if Chase and Burrow went ham, I had some sort of an answer.
Yeah, I liked your lineup here. I mean, obviously you get burned by Keenan Allen last night, and if you could, that was it. Like, you know what? You really didn't get burned too bad because Zay Flowers gave you less than the 7.5, and you really didn't have anybody else that you could substitute in at wide receiver, right?
Not really. I mean, I do have Mooney on my bench, so there was some thought about hey, I could run it back against my quarterback with Mooney.
Yeah,
but with Penix on his second game, I was not confident enough in that. DeAndre Swift would have been nice to jam in there instead of Keenan Allen, but the problem is I'm only playing 3 wide receivers because I've got 2 stud tight ends. Jonnu Smith and Brock Bowers have been just scoring big every week. So I think possibly the place I'm kicking myself the most is whether I should have stuck with the Steelers kicker. But I have no confidence in the Cardinals this week. So, and that was my other choice. So I felt like I had to stick with the Steelers. And I think both Nelson and maybe the number 1 team have no, the number 1 team doesn't have it, but Nelson had Steelers kicker as well. So at least I was keeping pace with the second team. Now I've got a decision to make at defense though, because I had the Packers in, but with the Cowboys, they were not interesting to me if Hurts was going to play. But with Hurts not playing, I think it makes it a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely going to be your question mark going into this week is who you pick for your defense. But other than that, I mean, you got the running backs that you want. You got Saquon chasing down the rushing record. You got to be giddy to have him on this team going for it all. He's probably going to touch the ball, 25 plus times. And then, you got Brock Bowers, who I could see having a monster game here. So I think you're set up pretty nicely to make a run at this thing on Sunday.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, it's disappointing that, these early games were such duds, but for the most part, that means anybody who was playing people in these games, is not doing any better than me. So, because
scores will be low.
Yeah, because the players who really went off were from teams that were a lot further back in the chase for the most part. Like if you had Xavier Worthy, if you had Patrick Mahomes, you probably weren't up at the top of the leaderboard. So when those guys go off, not a big deal. Derrick Henry, same deal. Just hadn't been scoring that well lately. So seeing guys score that haven't been scoring, that doesn't bother me too much. It's when you see if all of a sudden Burrow and Chase unload another, Burrow's unloading a 40 burger and Chase is unloading a 30 or 40 burger, that's when things get ugly.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you have a nice, interesting mix here. I mean, Courtland Sutton getting the Bengals, that's what you want. You're going contrarian against the top guy with Burrow and Chase. And, your tight ends, like you said, I mean, Jonnu's been on fire. And, Brock Bowers got AOC back, so that was huge.
Yeah, and Waddle may be out again, so, that just helps Jonnu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, that would have came down to, I would have had, obviously, Bowers in the tight end position, and it would have came down to, I guess, maybe Jonnu or Swift last night, just, maybe thinking that game versus Seattle, it goes a completely different way. Swift gets, a handful of catches, maybe finds himself in like the 15 to 20 point range. But, after watching last night's game, you made the right call.
Yeah, and Swift has been pretty unstartable over the last month. So,
yeah,
that was a pivot I thought about. And I was just like, I cannot make that pivot. Just can't do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're gonna do a quick promo here, and we'll be right back.
Oh, incredible news about Fast Draft. Fast Draft DFS is live. It's called the Flex 6 Frenzy. You just draft 6 guys, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends for the Sunday slate. You like Jahmyr Gibbs? You like Jackson Smith and Jigba? You like Tyrone Tracy? Draft him. And the beauty is you can just order 5 teams, submit your rankings, and Fast Draft will email you the results. We awarded $1,000 in prizes our first week, and we're just going up from there. Soon there's going to be a select 6. No drafting at all. You just pick any 6 guys. Our DFS mantra, just say no to salaries on Fast Draft. Don't forget there's free tools on Fast Draft too. You want to get ready for startup season? We've created the best Dynasty mock draft experience there is. And if you want to play in these DFS contests and our best ball contest for 2025 are coming very soon too, just use promo code PODFATHER when you deposit and you get a free draft. It's that easy. and you're like, oh, I already have Fast Draft. Great. Refer a friend. Have them put your username in as the promo code, and then you and your friend will both get an instant deposit match up to $25. We got DFS. We got Dynasty Mocks. We got Best Ball. It's all there for you on fastdraft.app. Check it out. And the promo code is Podfather.
All right, we're back, and we apologize. Nelson is having trouble with his camera, so he's gone fully dark. The Dark Lord he's just
Nelson blacked out, Nelson. But
that's right.
We'll hear his voice from the darkness.
He's gone full Sith Lord.
You guys can still hear me.
Yep.
There you go.
It's like a Nosferatu preview.
That's right. All right, guys. So what we're going to do, really for most of the rest of the show is we're just going to kind of go through the games game by game. Instead of talking about last week, last week was, it was almost a week ago. Since we're running the show late, we've already got 3 games in on this week. We're a lot more interested in looking forward than we are looking backwards. So we're just going to lean into that and just go game by game and talk about them all, who we like, who we don't. Anything else that we think might help you out as you go for your championships. So we're going to let Nelson start us off with Chargers at Patriots. What do you got, Nelson?
Yeah, I don't expect really a big game out of anybody in this situation. I think Ladd McConkey will be fine. He plays a lot out of the slot, so I don't think they're going to put Gonzalez on him. That's the guy that I always worry about when wide receivers face the Patriots. So he's really the only playable guy. I'm sure Herbert could be in some lineups, but I really don't see anything else. You got Edwards who's out. They're saying Dobbins is questionable, right? So if he's not back, are people want to trust Vidal and play him and hope that this is like the 1 week spike week from him that, you've been holding him all year long and you're now hoping that championship week you can put him in. I don't know.
Vidal for all the money.
Yeah.
Why not?
Definitely take some big cojones to do that.
Yeah.
But, also there are people who are stuck at running back. So, he'll at least be a consideration for those people.
Yeah. That's it. You guys gave me the boring game. So there's not really, Chargers defense, play Dicker. That's it.
Hunter Henry?
No, there's nothing that excites me, man. Not at all.
Hooper plays way too much. They split way too much there at the tight end position. Henry had that huge game early in the season. We all ran to the waiver wire thinking that he was something. He could be something in this offense. It just never really panned out, for Hunter Henry. Every now and then he has a game where he's 10 points, 12 points. You start getting a little excited. Maybe you think you could play him, but there's nothing there. I'd rather go for an upside.
My only comment from this game is the Patriots at the draft trading down when they could have had Ladd McConkey, right? And then the Chargers took him, and then they took Polk. Was that not like? Just? I think Jalen McMillan is better than Polk.
Yeah.
So
no, it's terrible. And people have blamed Belichick, for his drafting of wide receivers and his valuation. But Belichick had nothing to do with this, and they still got it wrong.
Yep, no doubt. All right, Matt, why don't you take us through Jets and Bills? I know you're the Bills maven around here, so.
The good thing for Josh Allen owners, I didn't think they were going to rest him anyway. I'm not a fan of resting guys or, playing, just a half, especially if you don't have the 1 seed, which has been locked up. The thing I think you're looking at most is Devontae Adams' status today, if he practices and stuff. He's just been a beast. And
hopefully he takes the week off, Matt.
Yeah, I'm playing against him in a playoff, so I'm with you on that. Garrett Wilson seems to really want out of New York. I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know. We'll monitor that. And Breece Hall, you have to play. He got 20 touches last week. The Bills made Ramdore look pretty damn good last week. In a game that should have been easy, they had to sweat at least for a half or more. And on the Bills, it's Cook, Allen. In desperation, it would be Shakir. And he actually had the one game that I can remember where he didn't make those catches. He usually always makes the catches. They weren't easy, but that could have been a huge day for him and Josh Allen. There was a couple of throws that, one could have been a touchdown and another one could have been a really big play. But that's really it with this game. And
I think there's a little more here, Matt, with the Bills side of the ball. If you're, a Josh Allen owner, I'd be more excited, obviously, being a James Cook owner here going into this game as 10-point favorites. With the Bills having with the Chiefs having locked up the 1 seed, are you worried that they take the foot off the gas again and it's a vanilla,
No,
game plan?
Isn't the Ravens like 2 games behind them? And if they finish tied with the Ravens, then they had a 3 seed.
I don't think. I'm just saying in terms of going for the 1 seed, that's over with now. They're still playing for enough here, and especially coming off of last week's performance. I would look for the Bills to bounce back offensively. I just don't know how hard Josh Allen's going in this game. But
it's a fair point on the seeding, but if you're talking about the 2 seed and 3 seed, assuming both of them win their games, the 2 seed and 3 seed are going to end up playing each other. It's really going to be more of a matter of who gets home field advantage in that game. So, I think they'll try, but
I think it's an important game. I think you want to wrap it up this week. I don't think you want to wait to have to go to New England. I think after last week's performance, and the weird thing for the Bills this year is I think they actually match up really good against the Chiefs, and they're a horrible matchup against the Ravens because, they just can't stop the run. They don't have the defense. Milano's not the guy he was. So, at least you want to get home field maybe to – if you're going to have to face the Ravens.
Listen, that's a big difference. You don't want in the second round going. First off, you want to get this win. You want to wrap things up. You want to be able to rest your guys in week 18 because then you have to play the first week of the playoffs. And then furthermore, you want to host the Ravens in that game down the road instead of going into Baltimore. That's going to be a big flip when you win the 2-3 game. The 2 seed versus the 3 seed game comes in the second round. So, to me, I just think this sets up perfectly for another James Cook late December, cold in Buffalo game, 10-point favorites. See James Cook going over 100 and multiple touchdowns in this game. So, my point was I don't see Josh Allen going for one of his 40-plus point fantasy performances here in this one.
Yeah, that's interesting. My take is even if the Bills win big this week, I still want to see Allen and the starters play at least a half. I'm not a fan. If you don't have that week 1 bye, I just don't like sitting the guys right before the playoffs. You get a little stale. Once the playoffs start, that first half, you see teams kind of struggle. Mm-hmm. So I hope if they do win this week, he at least plays a half next week.
Huh.
All right. Sounds good. Chris, you want to take us through Broncos and Bengals?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of if not the biggest game of the weekend here and for fantasy owners. And in real life, there's a lot on the line here in this game. Cincinnati can get this win here. Now everything gets real interesting come week 18. We obviously have the big matchup with everybody in the running here, having Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, or at least one of them, that big combination. And it's no easy feat because, we got the best cornerback in football, up against Jamar Chase this week. And I'm sure he'll get away from Surtain enough snaps to do some damage. But I think that's what it just comes down to. Does it, is Surtain follow him all over the field? In my mind, it comes down to, that game on Monday night when Jerry Jeudy went off. And he was following Jerry Jeudy around on like 80% of the snaps early in the game. Every time Jerry Jeudy went into the slot, that's when he ate. That's when he was getting targeted and getting all his catches and yards. So if they could do that enough with Jamar Chase, people might be worrying for no reason. Maybe it's a game where Surtain wipes out T. Higgins more than he wipes out Jamar Chase. But I expect that to, be a big deciding factor here on who wins all the money this week is how big of a performance Burrow and Chase could put together. Chase Brown had a little bit of his first off week last week. I expect him to go right back into, bell cow mode and go 20-plus points for all the people that have him. And, Dan, I love your boy Sutton in this game. He's been slow the last 2 weeks. He's had 5 for 50 last week, 3 for 32 the week before. I think he's just about due to have a big, 20-plus point performance as well. So I could see this game playing out like 27-24 type and helping fantasy owners out.
Yeah, my thought on this game is that basically, Surtain has been wiping out his guy, but other than that, receivers have been running wild on the Broncos. So, that's if you're going against any of the Bengals pass catchers or Joe Burrow, I'd be shaking in my boots a little bit because I think they'll find ways to scheme most of their throws away from Surtain. And unless he just locks down on either Chase or Higgins, probably they're going to, both of them are going to get some good action. So,
is T. Higgins questionable now? I'm saying.
Yeah, but he has been every week for the last month, and he plays every week.
And I hear it's just like
it's one of those. It's one of those. You didn't give me a contract. I'm not showing up all week and practicing hard, but I'll be there Sunday.
Well, the one thing with Saturday. This game, Chris pointed out perfectly. All I was thinking about was that Monday night game and how, Jeudy got to eat, like you said, every time he went to the slot. So that's going to be interesting. The T. Higgins, I'm assuming he plays and will be fine, but that's the other thing you have to watch. The shame of it is, even if Cincinnati wins this week, the Chiefs really don't have anything to play with. As much as I don't like resting players, the one team I think that could do it and get away with it, because they've done it so many times, is Kansas City. So that kind of takes the juice out of Week 18 a bit for me.
Yeah,
I will say, guys, just to add something, one of the top corners this year is Riley Moss for the Broncos, and I believe he's been hurt, and he hasn't played the last couple of games, and I believe he's good to go this week. So that could factor in also, not just Surtain.
Okay.
Nice. That's
Matt, to your
that's
Kansas
good to know.
City.
You're giving me some hope, Nelson.
Yeah.
Listen, for both of us, Dan, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping they shut down Chase and Higgins, and it's a Chase Brown game for me, selfishly.
there you go. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. All right, so Nelson, what do you think about Rams and Cardinals? Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so with the Rams, obviously they're trying to win because somehow, surprisingly, they've got the lead here in the NFC West and looking to lock up a playoff spot, which kind of threw me off. That snuck up on me. I hadn't, obviously really focused on fantasy and not so much with, the playoff standings for football. So I expect, their A game, and then Arizona I don't know. They seem weird. I don't know what
shitty, Nelson. That's what they seem. They are.
All right, Chris. Yeah, I mean, weird is translation for shitty. So I was trying to put it
missing
nicely.
both tackles too.
But did you guys hear? That the tight end has, 100 catches and no touchdowns?
Yeah. Dan, what happened, Dan? Last week you guaranteed a touchdown, Dan. What happened? Instead, you gave us the worst game of the year for him.
Well,
that was crazy. Yeah,
that was crazy.
Ridiculous.
That's what I'm saying. That's the part that was crazy. It's a great matchup. Kyler Murray came on social media. He went on someone's Instagram post or Twitter post, whatever it was, and said, basically saying like, McBride's going to catch a touchdown before everything's said and done. And he literally, when he stepped back to throw, like watching that game, he went from locked on to McBride to the exact opposite last week. Like, didn't even look his way. I'm like,
I can guarantee this. McBride's going to score 3 touchdowns in Week 18 when the season over, and nobody gives a shit anymore. And that's when he's going to finally score a touchdown and multiple ones, I'm sure.
For sure. And so, besides this game with McBride, I'm thinking, James Conner is questionable, right? So he left that game last week. Benson's banged up. Carter came in for at the end there to take over that backfield. So that's a big one because there's a lot of teams with James Conner as good as he's been. There's a lot of teams up there in the leaderboard with James Conner. So what happens there? And if he plays, is he going to be effective? I know James Conner's a baller, and there's a lot that it takes for him to miss games. So I think he's gonna. I think they're eliminated, right? Out of the
Arizona's done.
Yeah, they're done. So that's always a factor. But I know Conner is the type of guy that he doesn't like to tap out. So I think if he can go, he's going to go. Marvin Harrison is not even relevant at this point. And then you play Puka and Kyron, but Cooper Kupp has become irrelevant also here. So
that is amazing on Kupp. We were
really is
thinking 1-1 like early in the season. He would have been the 1-1 guy, and
I said that. Yeah. I remember that show, and I said if we had to draft all over again, of course I wasn't expecting. You're not predicting injuries and everything, so I think that factored in a little bit. But he looks okay to me these last few weeks. But it's just become the Puka show when they go to throw. Like he's become the 1A.
He's become the Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, that's the truth. My question. Listen, Cooper Kupp is not anywhere on anyone's radar right now, going for an overall after the last 2 weeks, bombing out with 5 points or less. But going into next year, how far does Cooper Kupp fall down the draft board after what he's doing to end this season, and couple that with the emergence of Puka being the clear alpha in this Rams passing offense? I don't think anybody will argue Puka will be right there at the top of the the board, first rounder. Can we all agree that he'll be a first rounder next year?
I can tell you right now, Chris, that Kupp's going to be a fade for me.
Oh, easily, Nelson. I agree 100% with that. He'll be a total fade. I just don't know how far he drops down.
What is Kupp's contract status? Do they save money? Is it like a massive save if he gets cut? I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked at it, but
isn't he 32?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's past 30. He's around 31, 32. He won't be on any of my teams. That's definitely one name you won't see on my teams next year.
I'll look at his contract real quick here, but
how about Kyler Murray in this game? 16 passing touchdowns in 15 games. He was one of my top 2 most owned quarterbacks that I was all in on, and along with Pat Mahomes, absolute bust this year. It's crazy. Like 6-7 weeks ago, people on TV were talking about Kyler Murray for MVP, dark horse. and I couldn't understand what games they were watching. But since then, he's just been a complete mess, and he's been a complete disappointment this year. So Kyler Murray, throw him into the mix with the bust quarterbacks, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got McBride and Harrison both struggling for different reasons, there is one common denominator there. So that's what you need to know. So Kupp, his cap hit next year is about $30 million. His dead cap is about 22 million. So they can cut him and save money. But 22 million is still a huge dead cap hit. Maybe they designate him post June 1st or something like that and spread it out a little bit. But they can move on if they want to. I'm not sure if they'll want to or not. It'll be an interesting offseason there.
Yep. No doubt.
All right. Raiders at the Saints. Obviously, Maddie, we got to keep riding Bowers. No doubt about that. The Saints defense really is just very average versus the tight end. But Bowers is about the only, thing I feel comfortable with on the Raiders side. Myers doesn't excite me. We are into the last 4 weeks of the season, so the Raiders run game, of course, is breaking loose, just like it did last year. But you've got both Abdullah and Madison, and, both of them scored well last week, but I don't know how much you can count on that. The Saints do give up a lot of points to the running backs, but, those guys are dart throws to me. And, I mean, if you're starting any Saints, good luck to you. I don't know how you got there, but, Olave looks like he might be back, but, man, with Rattler throwing the ball to him and, Kendre Miller passes the eye test, but the offense around him makes him such a bad bet. I mean, Juwan Johnson, that hope is gone.
Yeah, what was up with Kendre's playing time on Monday night? Like, all of a sudden.
I think it was a blowout, and they're just like,
but don't you want to see what this kid has?
There's no resting Keandre Miller.
Yeah, I mean,
if it's a blowout, it doesn't matter. He should be in there.
What I don't get with the Raiders,
the whole season off.
What I don't get with the Raiders was, I mean, I'm happy for fantasy, we're all ecstatic that they went back to AOC. But your goal was to get like the top pick or the 1-2. And why didn't you just ride out Ritter? Like, you just do the full tank. He's terrible. It gives you like the best chance of losing. So they're going to screw themselves again. It's amazing.
They already screwed themselves.
What are they like? They're now like the 4th or 6th pick or something.
Yeah, they fell from the 1 to
the
6.
All the Bowers owners are very, very happy with
as a Bowers owner, we were like saved. It was like the total opposite of what happened in Cleveland, where they went to DTR and Jerry Jeudy owners were like, shit.
Yep. Yep. Listen, this game is just Bowers or nothing. That's it. They should just call this game the Brock Bowers game. That's it. Exactly. It's the only reason you'll watch it.
He's going for the records and all that crap. So good for him.
Hopefully AOC knows he's got one job. Just get it to Bowers. That's it. That's all we care about. All right. Colts at Giants. What do you think, Nelson?
I think it comes down to Jonathan Taylor. He basically sleptwalked through the whole season. And then last week he had that monster game. So I think there's still teams in the playoffs with Taylor. So that's going to be a big one as far as a potential difference maker here in championship week. The receivers, not so much. Richardson, did he even get to 10 throws last week?
I think it was 11.
I think it was 11.
It was 11. I honestly didn't look at it. I was just watching the game. I didn't worry about necessarily the stats, so I didn't look at the box score. But I just remember every time I turned around, they were freaking running the ball. So I expect the same thing, really. And then Richardson is on the injury report, and I think he's kind of iffy.
He is, I believe.
I don't think this is like a T. Higgins thing where it's like, he's going to definitely play Sunday. He's just, they're limiting him. I think he's really iffy. So we might see Joe Flacco in this game. And then on Go ahead.
No. I just because we were talking about Richardson. What I didn't get last week, they were up like 38-7 early, like in the second half. And like you said, they had 11 throws. You're pretty much out of it, right? I mean, there's like about 1% chance they could make it, I think. But why aren't you why aren't you developing this kid? Seeing if you could develop him. I just watch these games where he throws the ball 11 times, 15 times, 13 times. It makes no sense.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't, Matt, but in fairness, I mean, Jonathan Taylor broke off 2-3 long touchdown runs. So that, the drives end real quick before you could get into it. That leads to, that leads to the 11 passes only. No, but you're up 38. Say it again.
Jonathan Taylor got that 70-yard run like the beginning of the second half. They're up 38-7. So you have and they almost lost the game. They almost came back and tied it up. But my point is, like, why aren't you spending that second half of a season that's pretty much washed developing this kid? Saying, look, we need to see you throw the ball. We're up 31 points. Jonathan Taylor's got 200 yards. I mean, just from an NFL, fan and seeing this kid, because I still don't want to write this kid off because I just remember how terrible Josh Allen was as a Bills fan his rookie year. He had no accuracy, and he had all this talent. And I think this kid has a ton of talent. He's got an arm that he can throw rocket launches, but he can't throw like a simple pass.
Well, yeah, I will say that the Colts are not mathematically eliminated.
No, they have like one or two.
From a coaching standpoint, they're looking to win.
Right.
My question is, and I didn't look into this, but if the Colts win this week, right, and then they win again in the final week, and Houston loses, who wins the division?
I think Houston had.
I believe
Houston did not win the division.
Houston is locked in.
Houston already won the division.
They've clinched the playoff spot.
Wins.
No, I don't.
No.
Houston has clinched the division. I'm looking at it right here. They have 9 wins.
So they have not clinched a division, but they have clinched a playoff spot.
I'm looking here. They have a Y where it says clinched division.
Oh, okay. Then they have clinched division. Okay.
Then the Bills have clinched their division. So the only way the Colts get in is,
Chargers or Broncos got to fall out.
Yeah. Well, the Broncos beat them head to head, so they can't really catch the Broncos.
Maybe it's the Chargers, yeah.
It would have to be like the Chargers. Because, that's still the play of the year, in my opinion, how Jonathan Taylor, just that whole game and their whole season shifted when they could have went up 20-7. And
Yep, no doubt about it. That was ugly for sure.
Nelson, in that game. Go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just checking into it. Looks like the Colts are optimistic that Richardson can go for whatever that's worth. I mean, I don't know what else they'd say right now other than that, but they said it.
Yeah, Nelson, in this game, besides the Colts side of the ball, I think Tracy is also a big question mark for fantasy players that are waiting here. There's a lot of, moving parts here at the running back position coming into this championship week. Tracy hasn't practiced all week, and he's a true game time decision as well.
Yeah, I've had Tracy obviously on some teams that were in playoff contention and everything, and even some teams that still could cash some money. Tracy is not a guy I'm relying on. Like he's on the bench and he's an afterthought. Like I'm not even considering putting him in the lineup this week.
I did the same thing last week. I gave up on him. I said, all right, I'm out on Tracy. I put him on my benches that I have him on in playoff contention. And then sure enough, the first touchdown of the game, he goes catches that ball. And I said, here we go again. I'm going to do this shit again. But yeah, it's tough to trust him in this game. Same thing with your boy Neighbors, Nelson. So there's a lot of question marks in this particular game. And I think you're seeing that the line is all over the place. I think it's down to 7.5 now, probably because of the Richardson injury and question marks surrounding him. But, all the big pieces here are up in the air. Richardson, Tracy, Neighbors. So,
yeah, I have a legit decision to make, I think, because even if Neighbors is active, I still don't know how comfortable I feel about that, because he is the one guy that nobody has up up on the leaderboard, and obviously he's got the type of ceiling that he can put up 30. But the quarterback play is so bad. Like Drew Lock, I thought Drew Lock could potentially be good and be better than Daniel Jones. He sucks. He's just bad. So I don't have any confidence in, even though it's supposedly a decent matchup, I don't have any confidence in Neighbors. Like, oh, he's just lock him in. So I got to decide between him and Jameson. I think even if Neighbors is active.
I think you definitely do. I think that is a very fair point and stuff.
Tough call on the Jameson too. I mean, he can disappear at any given week, or he can be big.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. But Nelson, does it factor in with Neighbors going for the the rookie record catch mark? Right? Isn't he chasing that down?
Yeah. So
with
today,
Puka.
So here's the thing. So it's Friday. If we get Malik Neighbors back at practice and he gets the questionable tag going in, then I think like it gives me a little bit more confidence. Yeah. But if we get no practice today and he's just legit game day decision, I'm leaning towards they probably don't even want to play him. That they might hold him out because he's got like 15 different injuries.
Yeah, and then let's throw this caveat in there. It's supposed to be severe thunderstorms, heavy rain all Sunday here in New York, New Jersey area, 15 to 20 mile an hour wind. So, Drew Lock will be shining in that type of weather, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah. That's his type of weather for sure.
Yeah, that's when he shines. That's when Drew Lock shines. That's when Drew Lock shines.
His one shining moment was last year on Monday Night Football when he hit JSN down the sideline in the end zone.
If my Giants come out here and win one of these last two games and blow,
you're going to be so pissed.
Number one overall pick, I swear, I don't know. Like, listen, these teams
Drew
are stupid.
Going. You can rest easy.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing that does help the Giants is that horrible game coming up that somehow I got tagged with. So somebody's going to win that game.
All right. Well, let's move on to the Cowboys and Eagles, which I think has gotten a lot more interesting with Hurts out. But Chris, what do you think?
I do. I got this game will be interesting for sure. And it's all surrounded with Dan, your guy Saquon, our guy. I can't our guy Saquon, but you have him in the running. If you told me this week, give me the number one guy you want for fantasy. If we were doing one of those drafts, Saquon would be my 1-1 for this week. Put him in there. They're going to try and hide Kenny Pickett as much as possible. Pickett has a rib injury also, but I don't think he's going to miss this opportunity if Hurts sits out to get back there. I don't think they're going to have to do much now that CeeDee Lamb is out to beat the Dallas Cowboys in this game. But, Barkley's going for everything. The 2,000-yard mark, the Dickerson rushing record. Barkley's going to get the ball 30 times till he's blue in the face. This could be one of those 150-plus games, multiple touchdowns. So wheels up on Barkley. The question here is, for all the people that have A.J. Brown in the running here, you can't feel too good about this. I think I think the passes will be minimal. I don't think Pickett will throw the ball more than 17, 18 times in this game. And if that's the case, how much is A.J. Brown going to fill up the box score? Devonta Smith is a legit sit, in my opinion. He's something that I would be looking to fade this week in this game. And Nelson, I believe you have the Eagles defense going in your online championship team, right?
Yeah. I need a 20-pointer out of them.
I think that's on the table, man. I think now that you take CeeDee Lamb out, you don't have to worry about the pass game. You mix in the Cowboys O-line is falling apart. You got Rush back there. If the weather's bad here in New York and New Jersey, it can't be that much better come Sunday in Philly. So bad weather game, cold, taking Rush outside, no Lamb to worry about. Rico was taking a little bit of step back in the run game. it all leads up to one of these ugly, games where only Barkley is a good play, and the Eagles defense.
Yeah, the Eagles defense has got to be pissed off after last week. I mean, definitely circle the wagons time.
Yeah,
that game was insane. I mean, I was going to like 2 different Costco's. I had the headphones on and stuff.
Maddie, slow down. Wait, hold on, Matt. Hold on. I always got to stop. You were in Costco Sunday during football
during the first week. I had to do it.
Going?
I had to pick up my in-laws.
Matt, come on. There's so many hours in the week, Matt.
Chris,
what are you doing at Costco then?
Chris,
you can only get the fish at a certain time.
Listen,
I can't have a thing. I'm not free.
Yeah, Nelson, go ahead. What do you got, Nelson?
Hold on. I'm not even worried about the whole Costco's on Sunday during football, but I could have sworn he said I went to 2 different Costco's, which that to me is crazy.
Well, I'm trying to get the whole crabs. They had them last year. They were the most delicious crabs. And they didn't have them this year. I mean, I got the crab.
Can you picture Maddie walking into Costco, the first Costco, being like, "You got this particular crab legs?" I gotta go across the town.
I just want to know if you're wearing your Jameis Winston jersey.
Across
were you
the
wearing
town,
the Jameis jersey?
you got to go across state. I have a Sam's Club near me, and the nearest Sam's Club is like 2 hours away.
Oh, this is too funny to me.
Wait, I was back home at like 2:00 though. I mean, I missed the first hour, but it had to be done. I had to get my in-laws on Monday.
I would have been up at 6 a.m. in Costco going, listen, let me get this shit out of the way before football starts. But you can see Matt walking down the aisle looking for certain things, and then like his player scores, he's like, "Yes, Worthy, I knew it, yes."
Patrick Mahomes ruined that bastard in the first half.
I was watching I was watching football with my brother-in-law this past Sunday, and he's a huge Vikings fan, and Vikings game comes on. He's like, "Don't turn it away from this game until it's over." The Philadelphia-Washington game. He was like, "This game is so good." So, getting him to watch anything other than the Vikings the moment they come on, that says something right there. So, yeah, great game. Instant clap.
Absolutely great game. Fantasy-wise, that was the game of the day, no doubt. But if you were a Saquon owner like I was following that game closely, huge disappointment. Actually, because he had 25 fantasy points halfway through the second quarter after breaking his long touchdown run. And you were giddy going, this is like the game when he versus the Rams earlier in the year when, he went for 45 fantasy points. I know I did. I had it circled. I said, holy shit, I got 2.5 quarters with the lead up 2 touchdowns here. I'm getting 40 plus out of Saquon and we're rolling. We're in this thing. We're live. And, after that, man, all you saw was Saquon getting hit in the backfield time after time. So real disappointing. Oh, and then, listen, that game saw all the Jalen Hurts owners bow out of the championship round. And that had to be
that was horrible.
Kick in the balls. Yeah, that
had to be my
really
main event team.
Yes, that was. I had a 5K team where I had Hurts starting. And this is over on FFPC, so it's a 4-way, 2-week all play, and somehow we're still in this thing. Even with only 5 points from Hurts, it's like, well,
who's your backup quarterback?
I got Purdy. So
okay,
it's not great this week, but it's all right.
It's not the worst thing. That Lions defense isn't too good.
At least it works out perfectly. We don't have to make a decision,
Yep, exactly. It's better than a kicking in the teeth, that's for sure. So, All right, well, let's move on to Titans and Jaguars. I know Matt is chomping at the bit to talk about this game.
Yeah, being out here in Tennessee, it's going to be terrible if they win this game because they desperately need a quarterback. I mean, they should have just played Levis the rest of the season. But I guess the locker room probably demanded he had to sit. That's the take I'm going with there. I mean, look, BTJ has been amazing. He's just such an exciting player. It's him. It's Ridley. Tony Pollard keeps dressing. He keeps playing despite not practicing. So I think that's the one you watch and. It could be another Spears week where, he gets in the end zone once or twice, catches a few passes. But, that's pretty much the extent here. As long as New England loses, you're looking at, pretty much the top four should stay intact. Well, one of those teams will fall out, but, it's the Giants, the Patriots, and one of these two teams should be picking top three.
Matt, on a fantasy level, though, are you starting Tajay Spears and are you starting Tony Pollard? Like, who would everybody prefer right now at running back after seeing these last couple of weeks of the way things are going?
I think I got to go with the other. I think I got to go with Spears. I just don't think Pollard's 100% healthy. And look, hey, shout out to this guy. He's not even practicing. He's suiting up. But they signed him for a couple of years. You're not going nowhere. Why not, rest the guy? But, especially that you don't want to win the game. Like, that's the worst possible outcome for this team is to win this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pollard's, I don't know. I think he's a little bit underrated as a tough guy because last year, even though he sucked, he was out there playing, even though he was, he clearly wasn't physically 100%. And he's doing the same thing this year. So he's a guy who likes to get out there and battle, I think. So I definitely would not count him out.
Pollard's taken a huge step, I think, in all of our fantasy players' eyes going into next year, where I think now, after seeing what he did this year and the role, he's established himself as the lead back in this offense going into next year. I think that as fantasy players next year on the draft board, Pollard's the type of guy that we're going to be really interested in for the most part because he passes the eye test. He looks good. He runs hard. He could catch the ball when needed. It'll just be one of these 1-2 backfields with Spears. We caught a break as Pollard owners this year because Spears was banged up most of the year and really not around. And Pollard was able to be a bell cow and he did the most with it. But now that the season's almost over and he's nursing this ankle injury, if they're smart, they sit him out and they just let Spears get the backfield for the last 2 weeks here.
I mean, what's crazy about Tennessee being a 3-12 team is basically how Will Levis just destroyed them early on in that first month. They should have won like 3 of the first 4 games they played. I mean, they were playing tough and all that. And Levis would just implode every week. So, I mean, it was better for them for it to be this way because you got to move on for him and you got to get one of these top picks.
Yeah. This is the Brian Thomas game, though, again. Everybody's tuning in for one reason and one reason only, and it's Brian Thomas.
Yeah. And he's just been a stud. I mean, I wish I had more of him, I have to say. He's
second rounder next year, guys? What round? Brian Thomas.
Probably second.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I mean, this kid looks pretty much unguardable, and, I'd be throwing him the ball as many times as possible.
So Shador Sanders goes to the Giants. Neighbors is the first-round pick, right?
Probably. I mean, you're certainly not getting worse at quarterback. So.
And then Thomas, the second-round pick. That's how I see it.
I think that's what we'll be looking at. I can't argue with that. I think Neighbors will be off the board 8 to 14 range. Thomas 15 to 22, like that.
That's an interesting, I'm still Neighbors, but I mean, BTJ is, I mean, I know there's a lot of Lawrence fans, still a lot of Lawrence believers. If he could ever take a step and you got a weapon like that, I mean, that's going to be an interesting debate, I think, in the offseason.
Yeah, because you're going to have a healthy Christian Kirk and a healthy Evan Ingram back in that offense, most likely, right? So, I mean, listen, there's no doubt about it. Brian Thomas has established himself as an alpha wide receiver 1 in the NFL and for fantasy going forward. Neighbors won't have anybody to contend with, though. So that's the difference there.
All right, let's move on to the Panthers at the Bucks. This is another interesting game, another divisional matchup, and I think you got to, Baker Mayfield has been doing great, but I think we got to beware a little bit this week. Dave Canales knows his weaknesses. In the first meeting, I mean, Baker sucked. He was not a player that you wanted to have in your starting lineup that week, even though everybody, went into that game thinking, man, this is going to be a massive game for Baker. And it just wasn't, and I really do think, a a coach who was as intimately involved with Baker as Canales was. It's just like Kevin O'Connell when Kirk Cousins came to see the Vikings. Cousins looked terrible. And I don't think it's probably going to go too much better for Baker this time around, though I do think he's probably going to get a lot of yards. I think you got to start Evans, but I'm not too interested in McMillan this week. The running game, though, man, Bucky and Rashad, they ran wild on Carolina. So I think they're a little more trustworthy than the passing game. I mean, if I've got Bucky and Rashad, there's no way I'm sitting either one of those. I mean, Rashad, I can understand if you got a couple stud backs. He's not quite as high up there as Bucky, but that's how I see it on that side. I think Tampa's run defense is really stout. Chuba might struggle. He and Brooks averaged like 3.4 yards per carry last time. So Thielen's playable. Nobody's starting Young, but I think he's a mid-range quarterback too if you need one. And if you're starting Coker or Leggett in your finals, you are not a serious person. Go ahead.
I mean, just going back to Sunday night, I found that infuriating. Bucky didn't touch the ball for the last 9.5 minutes in a game you desperately needed to win. Now you might not even make the playoffs because you lost to the Falcons twice if they pull it off. So, I mean, I just – that still pisses me off. For somebody that had Bucky, I needed Bucky to get, as many points as possible. So that's going to be interesting to watch how to break this backfield down this weekend if that changes at all. And Mike Evans needs 182 yards over these
91.
next 2 games.
He needs to average 91. Mm-hmm. He's going to get it. You can guarantee it. That can be guaranteed if he stays in the game and healthy. Baker's going to make sure he gets that record. Tampa Bay is going to make sure, even if it comes down to that Week 18 game, he'll catch as many balls as needed. So to keep that streak alive, but I'd start White and I'd start Bucky in this game. I think Tampa rolls here. I think Tampa wins their last 2 games. It all comes down to the Atlanta going into Washington. They're underdogs. They're in trouble. Tampa Bay is going to wind up winning this division, even though they slipped up and lost in Dallas.
Yep, I agree with that. I think that's how it's going to play out. I think Tampa comes back and gets a division. Mm-hmm. All right.
Thielen, for in this game though, Dan, Thielen popped up yesterday on the injury list. I think it was with the
that's
hammy. So look for him. But I would love to get a healthy Thielen in this game here, playing from behind. He's somebody that could catch 10 balls in this game for Carolina. Other than that, it's the 2 running backs for Tampa. It's the Tampa defense. Everybody was excited to pick them up for the playoff run, but they really haven't done much. So I don't know if you trust in them at home versus Carolina, but Chuba with an unbelievable performance to help fantasy owners out last week.
He really struggled against Tampa. Nobody's run well against Tampa, so
I don't think shout out to Leggett for showing off his raccoon Christmas treats in the locker room the other day. That was pretty wild.
Unreal.
He's a country boy.
He's a fun guy, I have to say.
Is.
He really is. He was great on the I'm on Rob pod. So
Yep, no doubt
definitely
about that.
Good personality.
All right. How about Dolphins at Browns?
Oof, how about it?
What do you got, Nelson?
I got Achane scoring about 40 points.
There you go.
In that game.
Please.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, again, Tyreek, Waddle's questionable. Tyreek, whatever. Huge disappointment, huge drop-off from a year ago. Tua's on the road. That's, in cold weather.
And rain.
I've kind of simplified it, and I know it's not the way to do it, but it's basically you sit Tua anytime he's on the road in cold weather, and he's definitely a possibility when he's at home. That's what it comes down to. And then from the Cleveland side, we talked about this already. DTR is just not a good quarterback, and those guys kind of fall. Judy and Elijah Moore and those guys are just, it's very hard to play them. Njoku ended up having a good game. which made sense to me. Just locks in middle of the field, but he's not going to throw with accuracy outside the numbers. And then, our buddy Jerome Ford, of course, of course he's going to do something and play well here down the stretch. So that's kind of how I see that game. But that's definitely a game that, I am interested in, as ugly as it sounds for football, because, I need Achane. I need those like 80-yard touchdown runs in that game.
Some dump off passes too would be nice in the rain. I think.
I mean, the way he's being used here lately, you got to be so excited to have Achane in the fantasy playoffs, right, Nelson? I mean, he's just getting. He's a 2-in-1 player. He's basically their top receiver and their their backfield. He's getting all the passes just dumped off to him, and especially in this game in the cold weather, and Tua probably not going downfield too much. Yeah.
The interesting thing, Chris, is if you had told me he would get the workload that he's getting now, he would have never been really a fade for me, and he kind of was. I definitely mixed him in the third round of drafts, but like some drafts he was going second round, and I was trying to be like careful with him because I didn't want to overown him, because I felt last year he had like that Chris Johnson prime CJ2K vibe, but at the same time I was like, this is unsustainable. But if you told me before the season he was going to get the workload he did, I would have been all in on him for sure. I didn't think I didn't expect that for them to use him as much as they are, which is great. I need one more week out of him.
Yeah.
Yes,
no,
please.
No doubt.
Yeah, both Nelson and I do.
Absolutely.
Oh, Achane.
It's been a running back year, and it's there's just a nice handful of running backs this week that are the guys I think you're going to need to win. And Nelson, you got three of them.
Yep.
Chase Brown, Achane, James Cook, throw in Barkley, throw in Gibbs. I don't know. Jacobs has been amazing. These guys you need. There's no doubt. More teams you see going for an overall are starting a running back in their flex as well, and that's what you need. These guys that are catching the ball as well, and they're the focus of the offense. So, Achane, I'd expect 20 plus points from him in this game again.
Yeah, I think those are the guys that you need. Like if you're talking about like difference makers for this week, I think if you've got Bucky Irving, you got to be excited to use him this week also.
Yeah.
As long as they use him.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Connor got banged up. He was on his way to 40 plus points. Chuba, the same thing. I mean, it really is the year of the running back in fantasy.
I mean, I haven't looked or even really thought about it, but it's going to be wild to see how many running backs are going in the first round next year. It's like it's going to be retro, like what's old is new and all that shit.
Yeah, I think there'll be a few. I think the second round might end up being an even bigger running back round. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into that in later shows, I'm sure. But, I mean, I know right off the top of my head, you could lock in Barkley and Bijan in the first round next year automatically. I don't know. Does anybody else have a lock first-round running back that will definitely be in there?
I think Gibbs is probably
I think Gibbs has got to be at least in the back. I think
back
the kid
end
is
of the
too
round.
good.
Achane's probably in there.
Yeah,
Probably shouldn't be, but Henry.
Yeah, and then how do you just I mean,
yeah, Henry
I'm not
I think will
doing
be
it,
more of
but-
a second rounder or something like that, but I don't know.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's move into and the nice thing is Dolphins and Browns, if you're interested in this game, you won't have too much competition for your attention because there's only one other game in the late window, which is Packers at Vikings.
So stupid. Can we talk on that real quick? What the F are you doing, NFL? You ruined Sunday. What is going on? I know you want to scatter all these games all around, but 2 4:00 games on Sunday?
Yeah, and they got like seven games in the the early window. It's just dumb.
I don't even think it's that many, Dan, but maybe I'm wrong.
It's at least 6, and yeah, you got to throw at least one more of those into the late window. I mean,
it's going to be a really weird Sunday this year. Yeah,
but anyway, other than fantasy players, I don't think anybody's going to care that much about Dolphins and Browns. I think probably most of the eyeballs are going to be on Packers at Vikings. That's for your casual football fans, that's probably the one that's a lot more interesting. Certainly interesting to me, but not as much for fantasy, or at least not as much for my team in the OC. But I think this is going to be this game. I have no idea how this is going to come out. I think both of these offenses are better than both of the defenses, so I think offenses are going to control the game. But on that said, I think it's also very possible the game turns on a big defensive play. So I think both defenses are in play here. Vikings at home, and Packers. The Vikings offense has given up some decent points to defenses here and there throughout this season. So I think the Packers defense is still in play too. But I think Green Bay is going to try to control the game with the run game, and if the Vikings are able to stuff that, which mostly they have been able to this year, then we're probably looking at a shootout. So the passing, I think the passing game pieces are really interesting. Watson missed last game; he might miss this one too. And if you look at their first meeting, Jaden Reed and Aaron Jones ran wild, both of them. Aaron Jones didn't score, but Jaden Reed had himself a game, and I think that's quite possible again this week. I think all the major Vikings pieces in the passing game are pretty startable in Aaron Jones. And as far as the Green Bay, I think I'd probably go Jacobs, Love, and Reed that I'm really confident with. Kraft or Wicks if you need them, I guess, but I don't feel confident about those guys. What do you think?
I don't know who's in the running with Jordan Love as their quarterback or Jaden Reed as one of their wide receivers, because both of them have been terrible.
Definitely not for I don't know.
If you're talking for like a DFS, if you're talking for like a DFS purpose or so, like a home league, maybe you have these options.
Some championships, those are going to be possibilities. If you had CeeDee Lamb or whatever, and Reed to your next man up. I'd feel pretty confident if you had Jalen Hurts and Love as your next quarterback up. I guess I'd be reasonably confident to throw him in there.
Well, I mean, Reed had like a tale of two seasons. That first half and that second half. It's like, holy shit. I want to give a shout out to Sam Darnold. I thought he would, regress as the season went on. Just curious, Dan, as a Vikings fan, what are your thoughts like going into next year? Do you want him signed up long term? Do you don't want to do that?
I think if the Vikings can get him at a good price, they probably need to do that. I really do like J.J. McCarthy. I think there's a good chance he's a very good quarterback, but, he has not played. And you have Darnold, who is working very well with Kevin O'Connell. And the thing is, somebody's probably going to swoop in and make a Godfather offer to Darnold. And if that happens, the Vikings have to let him go.
So there's absolutely no way, in my opinion, although the Vikings will be in a better position if they had Darnold as their quarterback going forward, okay, because he's shown he's a proven veteran now that could get the ball to Jefferson. McCarthy is the unknown, but in the NFL nowadays, the way every team is trying to set themselves up with is to hit on a quarterback that they draft. They have 5 years under a rookie contract where they could build the rest of the team out, give the big money, which they just had to do to Jefferson. They're going to have to pay Addison, all these other pieces here. They have no choice but to turn the team over to McCarthy next year, unless they somehow, by some miracle, say, hey, listen, Sam, here's a 1-year, $35 million contract. Come back and, just say they don't win the Super Bowl this year. Let's keep the team intact. We'll give you
never going for that.
Yeah, he's going for a long-term deal.
Exactly. I'm just saying by some miracle. But someone's going to swoop in and throw Sam Darnold, a 5-year, $250 million contract to be the starting quarterback of their team. So that's
if they do,
that's why I'm saying it's going to be McCarthy's team.
I think the Vikings could probably give Darnold something like the Baker Mayfield contract, where it's like you're definitely with us next year, And we're gonna put a lot of money up front and all that. So you're gonna get a front loaded contract and make it where it's like, okay, year 2, we can cut you. It'll be painful, but we can do it. And then year 3 would be pretty much like, hey, the only way this year is even going to matter is if you're playing well, and we're probably ripping up the contract by then and giving you a longer term one. So
I don't know. For me, it seems like he's fallen into like the Raiders' savior at this point, with the Raiders, falling down the draft board.
It could be, like I say,
a quarterback.
I know what the Vikings. I know what I think the Vikings can and should do, but the thing is, if another team does come in with that Godfather offer, Vikings definitely have to let them go. They can't just sit there and try to match that, and I don't think they will. And I think if any team gives Darnold a huge contract with a lot of long-term guarantees, they're probably making a mistake, because I think he's very good with Kevin O'Connell, and I still have big questions about how good he would be if he gets with another offensive coordinator who maybe isn't as good as O'Connell. I mean, I think O'Connell is one of the best.
Just playing devil's advocate, guys, but he looked pretty good to me last year. And
I was gonna say that being under the tutelage of last year, having Shanahan and now KOC, he's made a believer out of me. I was suspect, but I don't worry about throwing a pick here or there. I just think the way that he's been able to move the ball, and shout out to Jordan Addison, who was pretty much had one of the worst off seasons you could possibly have, and he came back strong. So shout out to him.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, we got a couple more games to get to, so let's
Dan, one last thing. Dan, one last thing on this game here. It's going to be the highlight of Sunday. No doubt, the Vikings-Packers. But you don't see that much Justin Jefferson in the top 10 overall of teams. Chad's got a team in the prime time. I think it's like 6th to 7th overall, where he's got Jefferson. I think Jefferson is the guy at the receiver position. He's been on fire lately again these last 2 weeks. Jefferson might go for another 30 in this game versus the Packers, and I'd look for Jefferson again to be the receiver that wins all the money for everybody.
Yeah, I think Jefferson's going to have a big game. He generally is a guy who steps up big time when they really need him, and this is such a huge game for the Vikings. All right, Falcons at Commanders. Chris, what do you got on that?
This is a matter of how much can the Falcons keep Jaden Daniels off the field, and the way you do that is they're not going to want to put the ball in Penix's hands and let him sling it around all day long outside in the cold in this game and give Jaden Daniels a lot of opportunities. This is Bijan, and mix in Algier. They're going to want to run the ball 40 times in this game. I don't think Penix throws for more than 125 yards in this game. Wow. I'd look to get out of the Drake London, Darnell Mooney business in this one. And that's just the way I think the Falcons have to plan it. I think
that's assuming
that's just the game plan. If you sit down and
like they can't
say
play
that again.
Game I said that's assuming that the Falcons get to dictate the terms of the game, right? Because what if
that's exactly 100%. Dan, right. If this is one of those games where if coin toss, Falcons win the game, give me the ball. I want the ball first. I'm not deferring to the second half. I come out and I run Bijan and Algier 8 straight times. I'm trying to eat up the first 8 minutes of the game. Falcons don't want to play this game 31-28 like last week with Washington. That's just the way I see it. Dan, obviously you as a Daniels owner, or everyone in the running as a Daniels owner, you want to see the complete opposite. You want to see 14-0 end of the first quarter, Washington. Penix has to come out and start slinging it all around, and that game script unfolds. But to me, if you're Atlanta's coaches, you want to win this game 17-14, 20-17, and Bijan's going to get 32 carries, for 150 yards. So that's just the way I see this game for both sides of the ball. Both teams want to play a completely different type of game. This is Atlanta's playoff game. They're going to win in week 18. This is it.
Yeah, it definitely could be. But Washington also needs to win. I mean, they're still not. I don't believe they're guaranteed in.
I mean, listen. Obviously, Washington wants to win. I'm just saying how the game's going to play out. If you're thinking fantasy wise here, I think Bijan's a top 3 play at the running back position this week. It's just this is the way a Jaden Daniels busts. I'm saying,
right,
Dan. That's my opinion.
No, I totally get it. I'm not discounting what you're saying. I'm just saying but if Washington starts dictating the terms, then Penix is going to have to put the ball in the air. London is going to have to be a big part of it. Bijan will still be a big part of it. I mean, I'm all in on Bijan no matter what in this game, but I think there's a much better chance that it turns into a shootout than it turns into a real grind. Because I don't think the Falcons are going to be able to dictate to the Commanders to that same level. And we'll find out. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
All good. By the way, 6 games in the 1 o'clock window, 2 in the 4 o'clock window. That's the thing. So, Matt, if you were ever going to go to Costco on a Sunday, this was the Sunday to go back to Costco.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, I did go to the first one, but I had to go to the second one. I missed an hour, but it was fine. It wasn't like, what are you going to do?
That'll do anything for those crab legs.
Tradition rings most.
I might go to Costco this Sunday instead of watching this shit. You get Jacksonville and Tennessee and the Raiders and the Saints. It's 2 out of the 6 in the 1 o'clock window. So, thanks NFL.
Yeah. All right. We do have Lions at 49ers on Monday night to wrap up the week. Matt, what do you?
I know the Vikings and Green Bay game has a lot to do with that division, how that's going to shape it. But, I mean, Campbell came out pretty strong saying they're playing to win and all that. I know they're beat up on defense, but I do think they're going to play. They're going to come out and play to win regardless. I think, with their defense being beat up, the 49ers are still a proud franchise. Brock Purdy, he wants to look good ending this season as best possible. So I do think we could have some, fantasy fireworks here. And I don't think Jameson is actually a bad play here because, again, he still gives you that. You always have that one shot with him where he can get you like 14 points or, 12 points just on one play. So, hopefully Gibbs, does this all well to wrap up the fantasy season on Monday night. And, it's not the game we thought it would be coming into the season, put it that way. Yeah. Everybody was looking at this game Monday night. So, but I still think
never works out that way, right? None of these games, when you look at them in August, ever pan out the way you plan it. I saw somebody on Twitter last night going, I stacked the Bears in Seattle on a team that Thursday night. I was all giddy. Think about it. It's 2 offenses that we loved in August coming into the season. And it was produced a 6-3 shit fest. So,
yeah, and the one player, a couple players you didn't mention, Matt, but I think Kittle has a good shot at a good game here, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, you can never really hold him down too much.
Oh yeah, he's automatic. I mean, and even Kittle at this point, he is basically their pass offense. Yeah. Even though we did see a sign of life from Debo last week.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to bring up. What do you guys think about Debo? Is he, was last week a dead cat bounce, or is Debo back?
I don't know. Maybe my consolation team was like 3rd overall.
I was going to say Debo was a locked-in 3rd-round pick. So, and he was, other than like week 1 of the season, he was a total bust. So
Nelson, I think the first 2 weeks he scored like over 18 points.
Yeah,
and I was like, this is going to be. And then what's his name got hurt. I was like so excited as somebody that was all in on Debo. I thought this was his year. He was going to get released. And
I thought the stars were aligning for him, for sure.
And he shit the bed.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think for this week? Debo is he gonna do it again?
I would
put him in your lineups.
I would.
Yeah,
I would definitely start Debo again in this game.
Yeah, I mean, the one guy I was going to use as like a dark horse, just Ricky Purcell. Like, he was getting involved in that game, and then he had like 3 consecutive penalties that he just blew up the team on, and then he was like pretty much out of it. So he's somebody to watch maybe over the next week or two just to see how much he gets implemented in as a peak for next year.
Mm-hmm. All right, sounds good. Let's get out of here with just each of us give 1 or 2 big splash players who you think is really going to be a tournament winner, a guy that you're throwing in with total confidence into your lineup. Who's going to give us the big points? Chris.
Man, we've literally named every one of my guys that I think, but it's Justin Jefferson and Brian Thomas at the receiver position for me.
All right, Nelson, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm thinking that it's Saquon and Achane at running back, and then for wide receiver, I'm probably going with Chris. I think it's Jefferson and Brian Thomas. And the one guy that I do worry about that I think, could end up having like a big week. I know you guys are kind of down on Kenny Pickett, but I think AJ Brown actually could have a big game also.
Really?
I don't think Pickett didn't look as bad to me as as I thought maybe he could, but it goes back to my thought process of if you've got Jalen Hurts going into the shootout, just pick up Pickett rather than relying on a Kirk Cousins. Remember we talked about this? And,
sure.
and Geno Smith.
And it came to fruition. Yeah.
Yeah, and all these guys, and it happened. And right about now, I would think that if you had like Cousins or Geno Smith as a backup or Caleb Williams as a backup, right about now you want to be starting Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
Well, think about that, guys. Going into the fantasy playoffs, Kirk Cousins, what do you call it? Kirk Cousins goes down if you backed him up with Penix, and the same thing with with Jalen Hurts and Pickett now. Pretty crazy.
I'm seeing here Malik Neighbors and Tracy will practice Friday.
Oh, there you go.
So that's from Underdog. You guys pretty much named it. I mean, Devon Achane is probably the number one guy for me. I agree with Chris on JJ. I'll shoot off on another obvious guy. I think Puka. He just seems to be, playing out of his mind. But the one guy, Dan has him. I really like Courtland Sutton this week. I think he's going to have to be counted on. This is a huge game for them. I like Courtland Sutton, and if Mike Evans might get the 182 this week.
Nice. Love it.
Those are mine.
All right. Yeah, I don't love saying this, but I think Burrow and Chase are going to wreck leagues this week. I just get this feeling in the pit of my stomach that
in a bad way. I agree, Dan.
Yep, exactly.
They've been doing it all year.
Dan's doing the reverse jinx.
I love it. Yeah. I love it, Dan.
I cannot acknowledge the reverse jinx, or it turns into the reverse jinx. So I'm saying that I really believe it.
Yep.
A couple of my dark horse guys. I mean, I don't think Jonathan Taylor is really a dark horse, especially versus the Giants. But teams that anybody who managed to sneak into a shootout with JT and is still alive to climb into the top. I think they're sitting well. And I'll say the same thing about Kyron versus Arizona. I think Kyron Williams. There's probably very few teams that are carrying him up at the top, but man, oh man, I really like that matchup. So I think that might be a fun one too. All right, well, guys, we've been at it for a little over an hour and a half. We thank all those who tuned in live, We appreciate you. We're gonna come back at you next week, hopefully on Tuesday, but we haven't really talked about that. That is New Year's Eve. But if we're able to do it at our normal time and place, we will. Otherwise, we'll let you know when it's going to be. Meantime, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the Player Profiler channel. We really appreciate that when you do that. And if you're listening to the podcast, give the show a like there as well. And good luck to everybody in their fantasy championships, your sprints, your best ball finals, whatever you're in. Go out there, kick it. Let's get it done. And that'll do it for us.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.